It's a Guy Jeans podcast.
Yeah. Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. This is Guy Jeans, your host. And I'm doing a little bit of everything. I'm mixing, hosting the podcast, doing all that stuff. So, hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. You know what's crazy is I wanted to tell you guys a crazy story that happened to me while I was guiding one time. And it's interesting. This is probably about 15 years ago. And I was guiding a gentleman named Harold Green. Old-time client of mine from many years. This is, like I said, about 15 years ago. And he wanted to go over and check out the South Fork of the Kern River. And I said, okay. So I picked him up, and it takes about an hour and 15 minutes to get over there. But what I'm about to tell you guys is pretty crazy. So listen in on this. This is a trippy thing that happened to me on this trip. So, which is going to lead me into the whole podcast. So we get over there, we drive about an hour and 15 minutes, and we get on a dirt road, and we're driving on this dirt road, and we actually passed this guy who had a backpack on. And the interesting thing about that area is it goes right by the Pacific Crest Trail. And the Pacific Crest Trail is real close to there where we were going, and we actually crossed the Pacific Crest Trail on our way down to the South Fork of the Kern. And so we get to the spot, and we're putting on our gear and stuff and hiking shoes and all that. And down the road, here comes that guy that we pass, and he's looks like he's been on the trail for a long time. And, I thought maybe he was a Pacific Coast Trail guy. We were right around that time period when they were hiking the trail. And so he comes up, and we're getting our shoes on, our backpacks on. And he's like, hey, guys, how you doing? And he was kind of, I don't know if you guys have ever experienced, like, when you go into the backcountry and you don't see anybody for, like, 3 or 4 days. It's a weird thing that happens to humans, is like when you don't see somebody for 3 or 4 days, when you see a human, you're like, hey, how you doing? So I've experienced that where I've been way back in the Golden Trout Wilderness by myself for 3 or 4 days, and I haven't seen a soul. And this one guy, I was back in there, and I finally saw this backpacker. This is a side little note. And I was back in the wilderness for 4 days, and I finally saw this backpacker back in there, and I'm like, hey, man, how you doing? Kind of like how this guy was acting to us, like he hadn't seen anybody for a while. And so I was giving him the benefit of the doubt because he was kind of acting, kind of crazy. And so we're talking to him and stuff. He's like, oh, you guys mind if I hike down to the trail with you guys down to the South Fork? And I go, well, we're going fishing, And he's like, I know, but the trail's down there. I'm going to pick up the Pacific Coast Trail down there. And I'm like, yeah, we're heading down that way. And so it was about a 3-mile hike down to the South Fork of the Kern from where we were parked. And, good hour and 15-minute walk or so probably. And all the way down, he's just jibber jabbering. He's just talking his brains out and talking about this and being on the trail and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like getting to think to myself, this weird kind of feeling was coming over. I'm like, this guy's a little bit nuts, man. And so as we get down there a little bit further, Harold, the guy I was guiding, he says, I've got to go to the bathroom. And I'm like, okay. And I don't have to go number 1. I've got to go number 2. And I said, okay, well, go do your thing, So he hikes back up the trail a little bit and goes over this ravine, and he's down in this area, down in this ravine doing his thing. In the meantime, I'm like talking to this guy, and he just seems like, he's missing a few marbles. And he starts talking about, like, being threatened on the trail by people on the Pacific Coast Trail, as miles away, where he was getting kind of hassled by some people and stuff. And I'm listening to his story. He's all, luckily I brought a gun. Do you want to see my gun? And I'm like, no, I don't want to see your gun, man. And he's all, well, let me show you my gun. I'm like, dude, keep your gun in your pack. I don't want to see your gun. He's all, no, man, I want to see it. I want you to see it. And I'm like, no, man, I don't want to see your gun. And we're basically arguing, and he's reaching into his pack to get this gun. And I'm just like, come on, man. And he gets his gun out and he pulls it up and he like points it right at me. And I'm like, hey, man, don't point your gun at me. He's all, oh, don't worry, it's not loaded. And he points it over kind of towards Harold. And he has his finger on the trigger and he's all, he fires off a shot, And I'm like, dude, put your gun away. And he's, oh, man, I'm sorry, I didn't know it was loaded. And I'm like, Harold, are you all right? And he's like, yeah, what is that? What was that? And he gets his stuff together, finishes, and comes up on the trail and puts his backpack on. And he's like, what was that? And I'm, oh, this guy accidentally just fired off his gun. And the guy's all, yeah, oh, man, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was loaded. And there I was like, okay, this guy is out of his mind, right? And so I go, hey, man, we're going to continue down the trail. We'll catch you later. So, oh, well, isn't it cool if I keep going with you guys? I'm like, no, man, your Pacific Coast Trail is right here, and we're going down to the river, and the trail goes this way, goes north. And he's, oh, man, I really wanted to go check out the river. And I'm like, well, you know what? We're going to head down there. You kind of do your own thing, and we'll be. He's, oh, come on, man, I just want to, cruise with you guys. And I'm like, yeah, we're kind of on our own, man. We're going to go. And so we took off, and I look back, and this guy is like following us, and I'm getting even more creeped out by this guy. I mean, he's just he's kind of a creepy looking guy, and I'm just feeling like there's something weird going on. This kind of like fear kind of thing started happening with me. Like, okay, this guy, he's tripping out, and this is getting to me feeling like kind of unsafe. But I felt that when he first walked up to us on the trail, I felt that kind of weirdness, right off the bat. But I was kind of like giving the guy the benefit of the doubt. So what I did was we hiked down to the river, and then we had to go down this ravine. And the ravine was kind of up on this hill, and we went down the ravine, and then we're down by the river, and we're putting on our waders. And I look up on the ravine, which is not too far away, but that guy is sitting on a big stump, and he's sitting on the stump, and he breaks out this big machete, this big long knife, man. And he gets out an apple, and he's like eating his apple. He's, and he's got this giant knife, like eating this apple, and he's just staring at us. And I'm telling Harold, I'm trying not to make it so that Harold panics. I'm like, I go, Harold, put your waders on quickly and your boots on quickly. Just tie them kind of fast. But this guy is out of his mind. And right when I was like saying that, the guy takes the knife and he stabs it into the stump, and he's like looking right at me. And I'm like, Harold, let's cross the stream now. Let's get out of here. And he's all, why? And I go, this guy's out of his mind, man. He's like staring at us now, and he's got that knife out, just stabbed it into the stump, So I got Harold up, who's actually a little bit older, and he held on to me, and we crossed the stream and got to the other side, and which would actually make it a little more difficult for him if he tried to come across the stream. And we kind of distanced ourselves from him, and he kind of meandered up the trail and kind of disappeared. But just one of the things I wanted to talk about was this gift of fear. And I was recently introduced into this book called The Gift of Fear by Gavin De Becker. And this is what the book looks like. You guys can see here. And I was introduced to this book by one of my podcast guests. And he's a member of SWAT team. You guys can look back at it. But it's an interesting book in that it talks about this gift that we all have called the gift of fear, and how a lot of us don't listen to that intuition of like knowing that there's danger out there. And I want to talk to you guys about that. In fact, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about, what just happened to me on this story I just said. So, he had approached me and Harold, and immediately I felt this weirdness from this guy. Like, this guy is kind of like nuts, right? I could just feel it, like, right off the bat. And then as we hiked down, it confirmed the feeling that I was having. But it was almost too late, like I didn't eliminate that whole thing, that whole situation right off the bat. If I would have listened to my instinct, my intuition of like the fear feeling that I was having from this guy, I probably would have not have been put in that situation, with that gentleman, if you want to call him that, crazy man. That's what I wanted to talk to you guys about today, and this book. It's an amazing book. You guys got to check it out. He turned me on to it, and he said, "You got to read it." You got to read it. He used his fear instinct as a police officer. This guest I had on, and when he'd pull somebody over, he could actually feel, and his intuition would tell him, "Okay, there's something dangerous going on with this car I'm pulling over, or not." And he would use that to his advantage. It's harder for us men to relate to that. Sometimes we're like, whatever, this isn't a bad situation. But sometimes, not listening to that intuition can, get us into trouble. So I want to tell you guys about a story in this book, The Gift of Fear, that's in the book. I don't want to give away the whole book, but I recommend that you guys get this book and read it. I'm going to tell you a story that's in the book that's kind of crazy. And it starts off with this girl she goes grocery shopping, and she gets a whole bunch of groceries, and she puts them in the back of her car, and then she lives in an apartment complex, and it's kind of dark. Like it's gotten dark, and it's at nighttime, and she lives in a 4-story apartment building, and she's got all these groceries, and so she's I don't want to have to do a second trip, go all the way up to my apartment, and then come all the way back down. So she decides to take all these groceries up at the same time. So she's got all these groceries in her right hand and her left hand, and she starts walking up the steps, and she sees that this gated apartment complex, that the gate is actually ajar a little bit. And she's, somebody must have left that thing open, right? And so she walks through, and she shuts the gate, and then she starts walking up the stairs. And she walks up the stairs, and one of the bag breaks of her groceries and a bunch of her cat food cans go down the steps and kind of go around the corner, and she hears this voice say, "I got it." And she's like, immediately thinks, that's kind of creepy, which it is kind of creepy, and it's kind of dark out, and around the corner comes this guy, and he's, according to her, she thinks that he's like, he's a nice looking man, and she's like, but still had this kind of like fear that something wasn't right. And so the man's all, charming, and he's, let me get that for you. And he starts picking up all the cat food cans, and he's got them balanced on his arms and his chest. And she's, well, thank you, and he's, well, let me get this for you. And she says, no, that's okay. And she's basically being adamant that, like, hey, I don't need your help. I'll just do this myself. But the guy's so nice, and she starts feeling like, maybe, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Why am I thinking like that? This guy's being a gentleman, and he wants to carry these things up for me, not listening to her fear instinct, right? And so she says, okay. And so she says, I live on the 4th floor. And he's like, that's exactly where I'm going. And so they go up the flight of stairs, and they get up to her apartment door. She opens the door, and she's all, thank you very much. And he's all, let me carry these in for you. There's no, don't worry. I'm not going to hurt you. You can even leave the front door open, and I'm not going to hurt you or anything. And, trying to be a gentleman and act like a gentleman. And she's like, no, that's okay. And she kept saying no. And he kept insisting. And so she's finally said, okay. And so she goes inside and he follows her in, and then he shuts the door. And he ends up raping this gal for like 3 hours, man. Terrible, right? And that's at gunpoint, so he's got a gun, and he's got the gun to her head, she said, and he's raping her. And, after the 3 hours or whatever, he gets up and puts his clothes on and says, don't you go anywhere. I'll be right back. I'm going to go in the kitchen and get some water. And when he did that, he went over and he shut the window. And she just got an overwhelming fear, like something was going to happen to her even more. And so he went out into the hallway, and she grabbed the sheet off the bed and put it around her and basically followed him down the hallway. And he went into the kitchen, and he actually turned the stereo on a little bit louder too. And then he went into the kitchen, and then he's like looking in the drawers, which she thought possibly would be a knife or something, right? And so he's looking through the drawers looking for a knife, and she runs through the living room and goes out the front door, and there's a neighbor that has a door open, and she goes in there, and she's safe in there. Well, it turns out that this guy had murdered 2 women prior to actually raping her, so he was probably going to kill her. And she had this overwhelming fear instinct, and got out of there, and she lived. But if she hadn't done that, who knows what would have happened? She probably would have been murdered. But the idea, this book, the Gift of Fear, is something that in this book it talks about trying to understand that feeling. And sometimes I've had a fly shop for roughly 21 years now, and all kinds of different people come into my store, and when I'm working in the store, and some people come in, people that come in that are legit, that want to buy, flies or buy rods and stuff, you can just feel that. But when somebody walks in the store and you just can feel that they're there possibly to shoplift, it's just, I've gotten used to it now where I know these people right away. But, it was at first, when I was first owning the store and working in the store, I was kind of tripping out on the fact that why am I feeling weird about this person? And sure enough, they're in there trying to steal, And so after a while now, I've learned that, if I'm working in the shop and somebody's just walking around the shop acting weird, and I can kind of get that vibe, I know that they're trying to steal something. It's kind of funny to me now, but listening to that instinct, that intuition that something's going on is definitely a gift that you have to learn how to use. I'm going to tell you guys another story that I actually listened to my fear instinct. And this is kind of a trippy story as well. I'm leaving you with 2 stories, personal stories that I've had that I've gotten out of situations just by listening, possibly, and then one from the book. But this story has involved my daughters and a friend, and I wanted to take my daughters on a camping trip up in the Southern Sierra Mountains, and get away and just have them experience a really cool camping experience, And so I take my daughters and a friend of mine, and we wanted to go fishing as well. So we went way up into the mountains, probably about 8,000 feet, and we're way up there. And I knew of this place that had a dirt road that went down to this camp, and the camp was really beautiful. It was right next to a small stream, and we could set up our tents there, and it would be really beautiful amongst the big pine trees, the Jeffrey pines and the sugar pines, and my favorite trees. And we could camp there and have a good time, go fishing and stuff. So we go up there, and we drive down the dirt road, and we actually had to use our 4x trucks to get down to this one spot that was down this ravine and this little gully, and you could actually camp down there pretty close to the stream, and really nice camp down there. And so this is like way away from anybody. I mean, like no one's around or anything like that. So we set up the tents, and we set up the camp and the chairs and stuff, and then we all go fishing and have a great time catching trout. And it's just a beautiful time. The sun's starting to set down, so we go back to the camp and we're making dinner. And my youngest daughter, she was probably 11 at the time, and she looks up on the ravine and she's "Who are they, Daddy?" And I'm like, I look up at the ravine and I look up there, and there's these 3 dudes like looking down at our camp. And it's like, it's not that far away, but I could see them plain as day looking down at our camp. And, we're way out in the middle of the boonies, right? And they're looking down at us. They're not being friendly at all. They're just looking down at our camp, and then they just disappear. So I'm automatically got this weird like instinct, like that's not normal. That's not the, something that anybody that was looking down our camp would normally like wave and like say, hey, And so it was getting dark. So I kind of made a note of that in my mind, and I was still kind of tripping out on it. I even walked up to the top of the ravine and looked around to see if there was any cars or trucks around, and there was nothing. And so still had that weird feeling of like something wasn't right. And so we had dinner, had a little campfire, and then shortly after that, we all went to bed. We were burnt out, right? And so we're in the tent. I'm in the tent with my daughters. We have one of those big tents, and we're all 3 of us are in this one big tent, and they fall fast asleep, and I'm kind of just stirring around, just thinking about that. And this overwhelming feeling of like, this, like, I just don't want anything to happen to my daughters came over me. And I said, I got my girls, girls, we're out of here. And they're all, what, Dad? And I go, we're leaving. And they're like, okay. And so I got them in my truck. I got my buddy up. I'm like, we're out of here, Scott. And he's like, okay. He didn't even question it. And I didn't say anything to my daughters at the time. We got in the truck and we drove, the 2 hours back to the house or whatever. And later I told my friend Scott, I just had a bad feeling about those dudes looking down at our camp, and just to protect my daughters, I don't even want them to be in anywhere near a situation like that. And so we got out of there, and the next day, my friend and I, we went back up there and got the camp and broke the camp and came back and stuff like that. But, who knows? Who knows what would have happened? Maybe nothing would have happened. But, just listening to that fear instinct of like, hey, maybe I should just get the hell out of here and protect my daughters. And, I don't want to be put in that situation. I was actually just really listening to that feeling. Yeah, I could have, like, if I was there without my daughters, would I have like left? Probably not. But, with my daughters there and that sort of thing, it was like, we're not, this doesn't feel right to me. This doesn't feel safe. So let's get the hell out of here. So I was just listening to that instinct of, that gift of fear, just like this book talks about. So anyway, you guys, I just wanted to share that with you, a couple stories. This is a book review for The Gift of Fear by Gavin De Becker. It's a great book. Go out and get it and read it. It's super entertaining, super enlightening. And that's one of the things I love about my podcast is that I get to interview all these different people, from UFC fighters to comedians to outdoor folks to river rafters to police officers to musicians. Unbelievable amount of cool people that I've interviewed on my podcast. And I want to thank all of you guys for listening and listening in on my podcast and supporting the podcast. I really appreciate it. If you guys haven't, make sure you like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and comment in the comments below for sure. Really appreciate it. And if you guys can, write a review on iTunes and that sort of thing. So thank you very much for listening, you guys. This is Guy Jeans for the Guy Jeans podcast. Talk to you soon. With everything going on in the world today, right now could be the best time ever to diversify your retirement savings with precious metals like gold and silver. I just bought some precious metals myself, and I got them from the top-rated company Goldco. They couldn't have made the process easier, and their customer service was impeccable. Goldco has helped thousands of people just like you and me place over $2.5 billion in gold and silver. They're rated A+ by Better Business Bureau. They've earned over 5,000 5-star reviews. They're a 7-time Incorporated 5,000 winner. And that's just mentioning a few of their accomplishments. There's plenty more. Right now, for my listeners, they're offering up to $10,000 in bonus silver. You heard that right, up to $10,000 in bonus silver, but only while supplies last. Go to goldco.com/guy to learn more. That's goldco.com/guy. Diversify your savings with gold and silver today at goldco.com/guy.
It's a Guy Jeans podcast.